Maybe I should open up my microphone. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Greetings. Good afternoon. My name is John David Wells. We bring you the news, the real news, truthfully reported. We analyze for fact and bias. We remove both. So what you can say is we de-propagandize the news. Then I make commentary, which is different than de-propagandizing. Commentary is just my opinion. It's not the news, and it most certainly is not propaganda. It's just my point of view. Also, we debate. 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. And it's Monday. And I want to thank you very much for your forbearance for me taking Thursday and Friday off. As you know, that while I never, and I mean absolutely never, portend to speak for the Texas Military Department or the Texas State Guard, even though I am a Texas State Guardsman, I'm a Texas State Guardsman. And not only that, but I'm also as most NCOs, or actually all real NCOs are, and pardon me if I sound self-aggrandizing there for just a moment, but all NCOs, all professional NCOs, are training NCOs. And I was doing that training over the weekend. And thankfully, in this particular studio, for example, I sit down because my feet and legs are screaming. There was a lot to do. Why am I not dressed up for Halloween? Don't you have an Eeyore onesie or something? Yes, last year I dressed up in my Eeyore Halloween costume. And I thought about doing it again this year, but I didn't have a new costume. You know, I'd dress up like a wolf or dress up like a tiger or something like that. Yeah. But I didn't have that. I don't have the costumes. And the reason I don't have the costumes is because, well, the budgetary allowance for such frivolity no longer exists in this particular household. So we had to decide whether or not we were going to play foolish games on the radio, or on this podcast, or not. And we decided not. So there. That being said, we are here on Halloween, and yes, the kids will be out trick-or-treating tonight, and yes, we'll have the fire pit out. Yes. As Easton's costume was free. Yeah. One of these days, I want to dress up like a pizza or something like that. I don't like dressing up in just run-of-the-mill things. I want to dress up like, I don't know, an anvil. I've never seen anybody dress up like an anvil before. Stuff like that. I thought you had a mask on. Is that your real face? Switching. Today, the Supreme Court of the United States has signaled skepticism, according to USA Today, about affirmative action. What do you think about affirmative action? What do you think about it? 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. What do you think about affirmative action? Give me a call or take on the chat room. You can do that by going to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Here is the copy from USA Today. The Supreme Court's conservative majority signaled skepticism over the use of race-conscious admissions at American colleges in one of the most controversial cases before the court this year, questioning the boundaries of such efforts and whether they are needed to ensure diversity. At issue are politics at Harvard College and the University of North Carolina that permit admissions offices to weigh the risk of applicants as one of the many factors that help decide who will be accepted. Depending on the scope of the court ruling, the outcome could have profound implications beyond higher education, spilling over into workplace diversity programs and other efforts to confront long-standing discrimination. During more than 3 hours of, at times, heated arguments, several of the court's conservatives noted the 19-year-old precedent that permits the use of race in admissions had warned that such policies would not be in place indefinitely. How, asked the conservative justices, will supporters of the policies determine when the goals of affirmative action have been reached? And then, of course, Chief Justice John Roberts said, I don't see how you can say these programs will ever end. In arguments later today, dealing specifically with Harvard, conservative justices pummeled a lawyer representing the institution for how it considers prospective Asian American students. Part of the claim from the anti-affirmative action group is that policies discriminate against Asian American students by promoting other groups. Harvard's attorney, Seth Waxman, rejected the claim. Many of the conservative justices pointed to a section of a 2003 decision at issue in the case, which scheduled a timeline of 25 years for ending race-conscious admissions. Though the parties and outside groups have debated the significance of that suggestion, still several of the justices appeared concerned that under the arguments raised by Harvard and UNC, the policies would never end. Are you saying when you're up here and it's 2040, are you still defending it? Said Associate Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Like this is just indefinite? Associate Justice Clarence Thomas, who has opposed race-conscious admissions in the past, pressed the attorney representing North Carolina for a definition of diversity and its benefits. I've heard the word diversity quite a few times. I still don't have a clue of what it means. It seems to mean everything for everyone. Ryan Park, arguing on behalf of UNC, said diversity reduces groupthink and leads to a more efficient outcome in seeking truth. And then Justice Thomas said, I guess I don't put much stock in that because I've heard similar arguments in favor of segregation. As a majority of the court appeared prepared to revisit decades worth of the court's precedents in affirmative action, liberal justices defended the need for race-conscious policies. I thought that part of what it meant to be an American and to believe in American pluralism is that actually our institutions are reflective of who we are as a people, said Associate Justice Elena Kagan. Associate Justice Samuel Alito, a conservative who has opposed race-conscious admission policies in the past, offered a hypothetical where an immigrant from an African country moves to a rural and mostly white part of North Carolina and describes in an admissions essay how he or she had to confront a different culture. Wouldn't that be permissible? Patrick Strawbridge, representing the anti-affirmative action group, said it probably would be permitted because the preferences in that case is not being based on race but upon the cultural experience. That prompted a quick response from Kagan. Race is part of the culture and culture is part of race, is it not? I mean, isn't that slicing the bologna awfully thin? Bologna. I love it when they talk about bologna at the Supreme Court. Years in the making, the Harvard and UNC litigation arrives at the Supreme Court as the nation continues to wrestle with the fallout from the decision in June to overturn Roe v. Wade and end the constitutional right to abortion. The two cases are among several this term that requires the court's 6-3 conservative majority to confront the fraught issue of race in America, as well as questions about the extent to which the government may consider race to remedy discrimination. Because of that, the cases are arguably the closest watch this term. A crowd of several hundred people gathered outside the Supreme Court more than an hour before the arguments got underway, most of whom appeared to be in support of the universities. All right. So there were other rubrics about this, but let's talk a little bit about what we know now. If indeed, the United States of America should reflect, or let's say it this way, should it be that the population of America, in all of its diversity, should that be used instead of using this subjective idea of which particular racial mix of people will have in a university anywhere? Should we not simply reduce the very diverse population of the United States into a microcosm for each university? Shouldn't we do that? Let me see, ethnic percentages. Let me just do this real fast. Ethnic percentages and percentage of U.S. population. Let's look at this. Let's look at this realistically here. U.S. population by race. Okay. The 2021 population of the United States is 331,893,745. Let me see if I can get to the racial ethnicity. of this if they have clear. Oh, here we go. This will be perfect. All right, racial makeup in the United States. Okay. Let's see. In 2021, white non-Hispanic group made up 59.3% of the population. That has been reduced since let's see, since 2011, since 2011 or 2010 rather, from 63.8%. So 59.3% of the United States is white. All right. So Asian, let's see, this this is very, very difficult because you see what they've got here is they've got these circle. I could show them to you if I use the other computer. They have these circle graphs, and they're very, very difficult to parse out because it doesn't really tell you exactly what's going on. 63.8% of the nation is white. 16.4% of the nation is I guess that's Hispanic and Latino. Yes. Okay, here we go. Black is 12.3%. All right. And let's see, the Asian percentage is 4.8%. Sorry, it took me a long time to get there. So if indeed that's the case, if that's where the population of the United States is, shouldn't every university in the United States reflect that actual breakdown? There should be 59.3 seats for white people. There should be 12 point something percent for black people. There should be 4.6%. There's 16% for Hispanic people. I mean, if we're going to actually have racial diversity in the United States, then we should reduce it to hard numbers, shouldn't we? Instead of political subjectivity. Did you hear that? What this all comes down to is they say, well, we don't want a quota system. Why not? Why not? Why not a quota system? A quota system would work just fine if the desire is to have fair racial equality. Just simply round the numbers up and let the universities fill their quotas. Why isn't that a good idea? Telephone number 817-379-2172. Why isn't that a great idea? Why not have a quota system? I mean, why do we have to rely on political subjectivity? Let's just get rid of it. There's also something else. Why is it that we're using racism to combat racism? And then, of course, there's this. Well, what happens if all these policies go away? What does that mean? Does that mean that racism might actually stop someone in a minority from getting a seat in college? All these things coming up in just a couple of moments. This is the Wells Report. You can talk to us all you want. 817-379-2172. The chat room's open on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble. Thanks for joining us. Back with more in just a moment. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number 817-379-2172. So they're debating affirmative action. Why don't we fix this once and for all? Why don't we fix this once and for all so that it can be easily seen by everyone? Just take the population breakdown of the United States of America, use the percentages, and plug people in. That's right, a quota system. Which is worse? A quota system where you can look at a quota, you can sit there and say, okay, we've got the right number of folk. We absolutely do. Or we have this politically subjective version of discrimination. In other words, of diversity. You have this politically subjective, politically determined definition for diversity that ends you up in the Supreme Court arguing cases, and always will. You see, what I've noticed in this election cycle, there are a lot of people who are incredibly frustrated with politicians, just politicians. I'm not mentioning party. There are a lot of people that are frustrated with politicians not telling the truth, and just not simply telling the truth, and trying to couch things in propagandist terms to take the truth away. I guarantee you there's not anybody with, I better say that again, because that's not true. I mean, I was just going to denigrate somebody that doesn't agree with me, and I'm not going to do that. It seems to me that people in the United States are so tired of being lied to that they frankly just rather have the facts. Pursuant to federal law, we will hire 59.8% white people in this department, in this university, in this company, in this corporation. We will hire 16 points, whatever the numbers were, 16%. I'm just going to round off the numbers. 16% of our workforce will be Hispanic. 12% of our workforce will be black, and on down the line. That's what we will do. I think people would rather have that than finding themselves in a position where a decision is made that has happened over and over and over again, where someone with a different color of skin gets the job as opposed to someone with a different color of skin. It happens over and over and over again. No, the qualifications were different. Excuse me? I'm sorry. How did that happen? You know, it's one thing to have employees not talking about their paychecks. That's pretty much understood. But it's really, really hard not to have employees comparing resumes. When it comes to university admissions, just adopt the quota system or get rid of all of it together. And this is something that I've said for a long time that leftist political intention or leftist political agenda items always fold back in on themselves and destroy themselves. They say, well, we want X percentage of people in every university in the United States. And then somebody else tells the Democrat, the left, what do you mean, a quota system? Oh, no, not a quota system. Yes. And so they back off of it in favor of a subjective political system that nobody can really, really figure out. And that's on purpose. Why not just say what we're going to do is we're going to educate a portion of our population until they are no longer beset with poverty. And if you don't like it, leave. But then again, that sort of takes away from the everybody's everybody thing, right? It's gets rid of equality, etc. Yeah, this is a mess. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment. Hang on a second. There was an incredible quote today. That was issued by John Roberts. Let's see here. Let me see if I can find it. I'm not exactly sure. Here we go. Let me try to find it here. This is worth the wait, by the way. This is worth the wait. It has to do with, they keep doing these update things. And those are really hard because they say show more and they don't show you what it is. Okay, I'm not going to be able to do it. Anyway, it's like this. I still don't know what the context is, so I better not do it. Let me see what I can do. Give it one more shot here. All right. Well, anyway, it had to do with comparing race in admissions to other skills or other attributes in admissions. And that had something to do with oboe players. And Chief Justice John Roberts said, we didn't fight a war over oboe players. So that leads us into the discussion I'd like to have here. So I said before the break, what ends up happening is that we have liberal policies, liberal political items that are enacted, and they always fold back in on themselves and implode. And that's what we have here. In the 60s, when the Civil Rights Act of 1965 was passed, it was a great thing. It was a great thing. Because there was definitive, easily discernible, horrific, anti-black racism in the United States. I saw it myself. I was raised in Brevard, North Carolina. I also saw it myself. I worked in Detroit, Michigan. By the way, in case you don't know, if you're a little weak on American geography, that's north of the Mason-Dixon line. Everybody talks about the horrible racist South. Well, how about the horrible racist North? I've lived in both places. I've seen it there. And everybody talks about how racist the United States is. Well, yeah, this is a racist nation. There is most assuredly institutional racism in the United States because it's enforced by the same people who say that racism is a horrible thing. So they came up with affirmative action. Universities that got federal money had to make sure that they allowed certain minority groups to enter the university. And so everything was fine. Until the minority groups, say for example, the Asian American groups, who almost worship education, started showing up with kids that were really, really ready to go to college. And they started displacing. Displacing other minority students. And then in order to avoid this mythical quota system, not because it wasn't the right thing to do, but because if they had a quota system, then they would not be able to overpromote or underpromote any particular ethnic group. And so what ended up happening was that they said, well, we'll just do this soft thing about Asians and just not admit someone. Well, the other students were just a little better. And there really is no way to argue that point because it's subjective. Except over the long haul where suddenly you realize, okay, this is a problem. And that's why they're in court today. That's why all this is coming down. So the idea to promote a particular minority group that started in the 60s has now morphed into something that is about ready to take the whole thing down again. In other words, what if the Supreme Court throws out affirmative action? If they throw out affirmative action, the left has absolutely destroyed itself. Because in their search or in their supposed anti-racist policy making, they create racist policy. And then when somebody says, no, wait a minute, this is racist policy, the only way to prolong it or the only way to perpetuate it is to say, nope, It's not racist policy. They just close their eyes to the reality of it. Nope, not racist policy at all, which is garbage. And so what we have here is we have this leftist ideal coming back around on itself, being set aside by the Supreme Court of the United States because it's racism. It's absolute racism. Out, in and out, done. It's racism. So how do you make sure that America's colleges and universities look like America, which is one of the talking points used by the left? Simple. You split it into a system of quotas. You just say, okay, 59.8% of our admissions will be white people, and you go on down the line. 16% will be black, will be Hispanic, 12% will be black, and so on and so on. Is that horrifying and terrible? I don't know. Is it more horrifying and terrible than what we have now? Tell you what. And yeah, they talk about this spilling over into other things. Just make it a condition of doing business in the United States. You may only have 59% of your workforce as white people. You may only have 16% as Hispanic, only have 12% as black, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that's the minimum. You can certainly hire whoever you want to, but you will have at least. Because if indeed we have to have universities that look like America, well, that's what America looks like. Let's quit playing around with this. Let's actually bring it out into the open. And yes, take away the political power. Now you're saying, well, wait a minute, is that cruel? To limit, say, for example, a particular community or not? You have to decide what you want to do. Do you want to promote a particular minority community? Or do you want to have universities that look like America? Which would you like? You can't have both. Make your decisions. To me, as weird as it might sound, I think quotas work. Because within the communities, within these particular minority groups, that creates something that is, I believe, nearly perfected in the United States, and that is competition. That's competition. Especially for university postings. Educating the best and the brightest is what universities are for. That's what the academy is for. So if you have, say, for example, we're just going to use letters, okay? Let's say ethnic group J and ethnic group K and so on and so on and so forth. They look at the situation and they say, okay, there's a percentage that we can fit in if you want to go to college that you're guaranteed to fit into. You're not guaranteed to go to college. Just this particular ethnic group is going to go to college. The competition for college-bound people in place J or in demographic J, well, they better get their nose in a book and they better start working. And on for K and L and M and N, all of these things. Competition is the crucible of excellence. They talk about the soft bigotry of low expectations. Well, how about this? Why don't we replace the soft bigotry of low expectations with a hard reality of tough competition? I bet you we solve the problem a hell of a lot faster. I bet you we do. But then again, that takes us right back to something I always say on this broadcast. If we actually made it abundantly clear, if we actually took race in the United States, certainly with college admissions and certainly with employment and certainly with all these things, and we forced a quota system on it. If we did that, if we took it and we made it clear, we'd solve the problem. The problem would be gone. What do I always say about politics? Politics loves a problem, but hates a solution. And so here we are with another problem. Easy solution. Easy solution. You can do whatever you want to. You can admit anybody you want to. But you have to have a minimum of 59% white students, 16% Latino students, 12% black students, and on down the line. You have to have a minimum. Doesn't mean you have to have a maximum. You just have to have a minimum. There you go. Done. And that's that. And then what happens? Well, suddenly SAT tests become more important. ACT tests become more important. All of these places become more important. All of the parenting it becomes more important. There are less kids wasting their lives playing video games. There's less accountability for those people that don't succeed. There are other ways to make a living. Mike Rowe, he was the host of Dirty Jobs. Mike Rowe was the host of Dirty Jobs, a brilliant show about blue-collar jobs. Well, what about the trades? You can make a bundle of money driving trucks. Make a bundle of money as a welder. You can make horse-choking gobs of money as a plumber. Jeez. Electrician, you can do all those things. Just because, say, for example, you're not necessarily college-bound, just because you're not college-bound doesn't mean that you can't make a lot of money. And he talks about the fact that they're having trouble getting people in the trades. Well, there are two reasons. One, that's really hard flipping work. And two, the trades are harder than video games. I'm serious. That, by the way, is the way it used to be because people used to be more connected to reality in olden days than they are now. And once again, we're trying to legislate. We're trying to legislate anti-racism. Well, if you're gonna legislate anti-racism, put a quota out there. Done. End of problem. That brings reality into it. Well, what about all these other people in these particular demographic groups? Better get to work. Because that's going to be the way it is for them when they get out of school. It's the way it was for me. I did not go to university. The man you hear me speaking on these topics is someone I built. I got into radio. I ate, breathed, drank it, and I'm still doing it for 50 years. You can't learn radio by reading it out of a book. You have to go do it. So I did it. I could have gone to college. But at the end of the day, no, I wasn't some brainiac that go to college and, become some analyst somewhere. That wasn't me. I was an artist. I was somebody that wanted to create. I wanted to sing and dance and act and tell jokes and so on and so on. I could do all of that on radio, so I did. So I made a living doing this. Other people can. There are a lot of things to do. The point is there are a lot of things to do for a living. College is not the be-all, end-all. And if you don't believe me, just look at Ilhan Omar from Minnesota. Arriving from Somalia at age 9, is now a virulent anti-American, socialist, communist, totalitarian.
She has become what she despised. The so-called elite dominating everyone. And who taught her how to do that? Somalia? No. No, the university system in the United States of America. See, there are ways to solve these things, but we had, by God, better. Stop playing games and let politicians pick solutions, pick winners and losers out of the demographic stew of the United States of America. The best way to get rid of racism is to get rid of racism. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. The United States of America works best as a meritocracy. You merit the success you receive. You learn the ways of being successful. You learn the ways of earning and expressing merit. I lost jobs in radio because I didn't get along with the boss for some reason or another. And so I had to learn how to get along with the boss. These are things that are required. You can't blame the boss for being just a bad meanie or not liking guys with, large noses and green eyes. You just can't say, my God, he just doesn't like people with green eyes. No, what you have to do is learn how to be less of a jackass. You can't blame your problems on everybody else. You just can't do it. That's not reality. I'm 64 years old. And I did something the other day. I took my son, I think I told you. I told you, I said, I lost control of my son's haircuts a decade ago. He's 23. And so I finally took charge of his haircut and took him to a real barbershop. And I said, Val, help him out, will you please? Okay. He looks great. Absolutely great. But on my way back to that barbershop, I passed by Mathnasium. And I asked my son, I wonder if they take adults. Because there's this hole in my math education that stops at 7th grade and sort of tried to pick up back in 9th grade, but I didn't have the skills that were necessary between 7th and 9th grade. My 8th grade math. And there were concepts there that I still didn't get. And so I barely got C's in math. I really did. I was, for all intents and purposes, I'm below average. I can do something. If it wasn't for cars, if it wasn't for actual spring rates and shock rates and the physics you have to learn about getting a car to go fast, I'd have no math at all. So I'm going by Mathnasium. I said, I wonder if they take adults. Both Susan and Colton said, yeah, I think they take adults. Why don't you give it a shot? I think I will. Not because I want to just become a math whiz, but there are things missing that I want to fix. Who knows? Maybe it would make me more competitive. It's hard getting a job when you're 64. But these are the things that are required by a meritocracy. You have to continually improve based on your education, your job experience, your life experience. You have to continually improve. And the more you improve, like this broadcast right here, I'm between radio jobs. Somebody will hire me. Somebody will hire me to do this job on the radio. But right now I'm doing this. What does that mean? It means I have to learn how to operate this video equipment so that I can do this and little things like that. I have to build a studio, not just an audio studio, but a television studio. I have to learn those skills. But you see, if you just sit back and say, oh, those rotten people, they should never have fired me. They don't like people with green eyes. You'll sit there and cry your way into something that is not real. You're putting yourself in an unreal world, and if you don't break out of it, you'll never escape it. So let me talk about something else regarding the Supreme Court of the United States. Former President Donald Trump today asked the Supreme Court to intervene in his long-running battle with the House Ways and Means Committee. This over access to years of his tax returns. His request came to the nation's highest court days after the full U.S. Court of Appeals for D.C. declined to reconsider an August ruling by a 3-judge panel that unanimously sided with the House committee in the dispute. Trump asked the Supreme Court to pause enforcement of the appeals court ruling until he has a chance to submit a formal appeal of the decision to the High Court. This is political. This is political lawmaking by the U.S. D.C. Court of Appeals, or the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit. Now, that being said, I want to make something abundantly clear. When Donald Trump said he wasn't going to release his tax returns, I knew why, because he'd been under perpetual audit by the IRS, and the IRS hadn't made a decision about his taxes, ever. And so what needed to happen was he needed to say, okay, I will release my taxes as soon as the IRS takes me off the audit list. As soon as they sign off on all of the years of my tax returns that you want to look at, I'll send them to you. But he didn't say that. And so now he's in this gigantic mess because politics says, well, you've got to release your tax returns. Oh, yeah? I don't think so. It's none of the people's business. None of the business. It has nothing to do with the government of the United States. government of the United States has no business whatsoever coming to you, Langston, and demanding your tax returns. And if they ever do, I will fight to keep them away, the tax returns away from them, because it's none of their business. It's nobody's business what your tax returns say. It's a political stunt to release them in the first place. But I told President Trump he better release them. He better. And he didn't. Well, welcome to the mess, Mr. President. Good luck with that. This is the Wells Report. Back with hour number 2 next. All right, y'all. Thanks very much for being with us today. I hope you're enjoying the show so far, and we'll be back in just a moment. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. We report the news here, honestly, truthfully. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We de-propagandize propaganda. We make commentary. That is not news. It's most assuredly not propaganda. It's what I think. It's just what I think. Just as valuable as your opinion. That's my opinion. And then we debate. The debate can be had as follows. Join me on the telephone, 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. Or you can join us on the chat room, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. You can be a part of this broadcast if you choose, and it would be nice. So I was out of town over the weekend, actually beginning on Thursday. And I only heard about the Pelosi attack. When I guess it was in the middle of I was headed to bed, and it was a headline. I mean, those days are long. Those are 16-hour days plus. And so I was busy the entire day, and then I heard about it. And I was saddened, and I was frustrated, and I was angry. Not at the politics, not at the skewed media, but that someone would take a hammer to the head of the husband of the Speaker of the House of Representatives. It is so detrimental to everything we are when people do that kind of garbage. Oh, John David, for crying out loud, how can you do anything about it? I'll get to that coming up a little bit later on. Here's the USA Today version of the story. The hammer-wielding suspect who broke into the home of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and allegedly assaulted her husband Paul Pelosi with a hammer has been identified as 42-year-old David DePape. He was booked on various charges, including attempted homicide, assault with a deadly weapon, elder abuse, burglary, among others, according to San Francisco Police Chief William Scott at a news conference. Strangely, I don't think they gave him cashless bail, which is odd. Sorry, I don't think they gave him cashless bail, which is odd. I shouldn't have used that camera. See, this is the news camera. This is the opinion camera. News, opinion. Anyway, DePape was booked on various charges, attempted homicide, assault with a deadly weapon, elder abuse, burglary, among others, San Francisco Police Chief William Scott said at a news conference. He's 42. He's from Berkeley, California. Berkeley. What a wonderfully sweet and peaceful place Berkeley is. He grew up in Canada, in Powell River, British Columbia, according to CNN. He had strong opinions that differed from those of his family members. Teresa DePape, who is married to the suspect's stepfather living in Powell River, BC, told USA Today that DePape had left the area for California about 20 years ago. I did not know David to be a violent person, but he was an aggressive speaker. The family had not been in regular contact with the suspect, but Teresa DePape and David emailed his stepfather a couple of years ago, indicating he would visit and then didn't follow up. Mark DePape, a family member, said he had lost touch with DePape long ago. I haven't seen David in over 25 years. I don't know David anymore. He doesn't contact family. I'm sorry to hear this tragedy. Teresa DePape said that David's strong opinions differed from those of his family members, including his stepfather. David was a good kid. He just had opinions. He believed DePape was a fan of the Burning Man Festival, an annual counterculture arts gathering in the Nevada desert. It is the very definition of entropy. She declined to elaborate on the views that he was espousing. She wouldn't say what they were. After fielding reporters' telephone calls, she contacted law enforcement authorities in San Francisco. She said they confirmed that DePape was in custody. Teresa DePape said the family should or would wait until he reached out to them. I hope you find the truth, she says.
On Facebook, DePape apparently posted that the trial of a Minneapolis police officer, Derek Chauvin, found guilty of killing George Floyd, was a modern-day lynching. He also posted transphobic messages, linked to websites claiming that COVID-19 vaccines were deadly, and posted links to YouTube videos with the titles like Democrat Farce Commission to Investigate January 6th Capitol Riot Collapses in Congress, and, quote, global elites plan to take control of your money, revealed, unquote. Okay. A WordPress blogger, self-identified as David DePape, lamented about the purported censorship by tech giants and private industry, suggesting the founding fathers never imagined a day where they could single-handedly silence the people. The reason we have a First Amendment is because censorship only applies to you, the blogger David DePape wrote. The elites and ruling class never censor themselves. Why are we hearing about this in this article? More about that coming up later, too. On a different blog under the name David DePape, which has also been deleted, a number of posts to categories alluding to anti-Semitism, transphobia, and right-wing conspiracy theories. While in California, David DePape was known locally in Berkeley as a pro-nudity activist who picketed naked against laws that required people to be clothed in public. He lived with Gypsy Taub, another nude activist, and her family. The San Francisco Chronicle defined DePape, or identified DePape in 2013 as a hemp jewelry maker and a father figure to Taub's 3 children. The group said that DePape lived with the group that DePape also lived with promoted conspiracy theories at the time, including the theory that 9/11 was an inside job. It wasn't an inside job, but why is that significant here? DePape was booked into a local jail at 1:27 p.m. Pacific time, been charged with burglary, assault with a deadly weapon, threatening a family member of a public official, dissuading a witness from reporting a crime, elder abuse, battery with serious bodily injury, damaging a wireless device, and attempted murder. Damaging a wireless device? Is that something that... Okay, hang on. I've got to go to the opinion camera. Damaging a wireless device? Is that something else that someone who has famously damaged wireless devices needs to be charged with? The motive for the attack is still under investigation, according to a joint statement from the U.S. Capitol Police, FBI, and San Francisco Police. Now, there is something else that I want to talk about. This from Fox News, or at least want to share with you. I'll talk about all this stuff later. The man accused of breaking into House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's California home and assaulting her husband had a list of other people to target. David DePape allegedly broke into the Pelosi home, struck Paul Pelosi at least once with a hammer. They have recovered a list belonging to DePape of other potential targets. They stopped short of referring to it as a hit list. Police responded to the home at 2 a.m. to find DePape and Pelosi struggling over a hammer. Pelosi was reportedly able to call the police by saying he needed to go to the bathroom, and he did. And then they go on to all of these things about DePape. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we know about this. First of all, I find it interesting that USA Today listed a bunch of things that are free speech items. The one thing that stuck out was anti-Semitism. Being able to, say, for example, demonstrate in the United States, called by the left and right as a fundamental American right, does not exclude nudity. Okay, but we still found out about it. I guess it's a detail that makes news for some reason. Some of the other things are not as wild and crazily unmainstream as they appear in the context of this article, which is intriguing to me. Is USA Today trying to say, well, let's go back to the USA Today thing and let's talk about some of this stuff here that they are trying to throw out there? The point of the matter is
is what they're doing is they're throwing things out there to make the guy look like a creep. Well, what exactly are they throwing out there? Let's take a look. Let's see. With family not been in regular contact, I got something to say about the family. Got to do that. Facebook. Derek Chauvin found guilty of killing George Floyd was a modern day lynching. Well, he killed George Floyd. Derek Chauvin killed George Floyd. Was it a modern day lynching? I don't know. I don't think so. Moreover, the jury didn't think so. And if you're going to take shots at that particular conviction, you're going to take shots at the jury system, and that leads nowhere. But David DePape certainly can say that. That's not that crazy. I mean, aside from the fact it's not true, let's see what else. I mean, are we really going to start throwing people in jail that say things aren't true? Bye-bye, Mr. President. Let's see what else. He linked to websites claiming that COVID-19 vaccines were deadly and posted links to YouTubes with titles like Democrat Farce Commission to investigate January 6th Capitol riot collapses in Congress. Again, these things may not be true, but does he get to say them or not? And once again, why are they putting them in this article? Because they're trying to make David DePape look like a crazy person. He lamented about purported censorship by tech giants and private industry. Have you been censored by Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Google? Well, if you haven't, guess what? You're in the minority. That is censorship. Once again, why are we hearing about that? What does that have to do with this hammer attack? What does it have to do with? Then he said something about the reason we have a First Amendment is because censorship only applies to you. That's a artsy way of saying it. But yeah, all these things were removed. Now, the one thing in here that really bugs me is the anti-Semitism part. Transphobia and right-wing conspiracy theories. Okay, so transphobia. Who's determining that what he's saying is transphobic? The people with an axe to grind about transphobia. Right-wing conspiracy theories. What, it's against the law to have right-wing conspiracy theories? Really? I know it can be very costly to have a right-wing conspiracy theory. That's why I don't delve into conspiracy theory. And I certainly don't accuse people of being crisis actors. I believe in fact. The analysis part of this does, however, put me in a situation where I have to look at USA Today and say, what are you doing? Is this news reporting? Or are you trying to muddy up the personal background of David DePape? They got him cold. They got him cold. Just report the news. Just report the facts. David DePape allegedly struck Paul Pelosi in the head with a hammer after a break-in. He's in jail. He was arraigned today. Done. And the rest of it is the rest of it. Right up to the point where we have to talk about the fact that he's Nancy Pelosi's husband. More in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Diane Leaf makes a good point. She says DePape should not have bail or even still be in custody. They let all the rest out. According to the changing rules or charging rules, shouldn't those all be misdemeanors? Everything that he was charged with? Why is he different? Diane sees some justice and equity there. Yeah, just a little bit. But there's also a lot more to that inequity, isn't there? And that's one of the problems with all of this. So what ends up happening is that a leftist group decides to expose the personal addresses of conservative Supreme Court justices. And what ends up happening? Well, nobody does anything. DOJ doesn't arrest the people that gather. There was a guy that goes out to try to assassinate Justice Kavanaugh. And yeah, there was a people that, but he was just arrested. He was arrested on aggravated assault or something along. No, he should have been arrested for attempted assassination of a public figure. Now, by the way, there is a charge like that in California. Don't know what they are in Virginia, which I believe, or is it Maryland, wherever Kavanaugh lives. So what we have here is we have now the pundits talking about how terrible it was that Paul Pelosi was accosted. Well, it was terrible. It was awful. It was a horrible, rotten, terrible thing. And it should have never happened. Should have never happened. And now they're trying to find a motive. Well, the motive that I would say right now, the motive is to try to do something about the overheated and stupid rhetoric that the political sides of this nation keep throwing at each other. All this hyperbolic acid being tossed back and forth spills on the American people on a regular basis. And it looks as though a drop of that acid fell into David DePape's ear and ate into a portion of his brain, the part of his brain that said going and attacking somebody with a hammer was okay. I think that's the motive. And what I also find fascinating is how terrible and awful and rotten it was that Paul Pelosi got attacked. It's true. It is awful. What about Steve Scalise getting shot? And of course, I've already mentioned Brett Kavanaugh. There's one other human being that had one other ridiculous example of all of that she threw out there. And I'm going to point that out as well. That'll be coming up after the bottom of the hour. There is a reason why it has taken until Donald Trump got elected for the people of the United States, specifically the politicians of the United States, to not throw hysterical, evil, rotten, acidic bombs at each other from one side of the aisle to the other, because it inflames the public. We have never seen the Senate Majority Leader threatening a Supreme Court. Ever. We've never seen a president call 74 million Americans fascists. Until now. Why do you suppose that is? Well, I know exactly why it is. Because all those guys deserve it. That's why. Did Brett Kavanaugh deserve to get attacked? No. No. But the people that caused him to be attacked deserve it. This is the reality we live with in the United States because our leadership wants to damage the other half of leadership as much as they possibly can so they can win an election. It's the scorched earth I've been talking about for years and years and years, and they need to stop it. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more in just a couple of moments. You stay right there. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. You can find the chat room at Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. You're certainly welcome to join us. We appreciate it. By the way, you can support this broadcast, and we hope you do. If you find value in it, please share it with your friends. Indeed, subscribe to it. That helps us a lot. Just subscribe to it, give us a thumbs up, give us a like if you'd like. That would be nice. And if you would like to put a little bit of money into it, if you'd like to put your money where my mouth is, it's not expensive. It's like $1 a month. Go to patreon.com/The Wells Report. Okay, that's Patreon, Patreon, /The Wells Report, $1 a month. $1 a month would help me out a lot, and I sure would appreciate it because this is an independent broadcast. Remember, I was talking, I guess it was last hour, I said, pretty soon some radio station will hire me again, and I'll be able to subsidize this broadcast with a radio station salary, but I'm not there right now. So this is coming out of my pocket. If you'd like to help me out with that, I sure would appreciate it. Thank you. That's awfully nice. So the attack on Paul Pelosi was unacceptable. It was atrocious. It was ridiculous. It was awful. It was unnecessary, and moreover, it was flippingly stupid. Absolutely stupid. The people that do these things are maniacs. There are others, like the person who the person who, say, shot Gabby Gifford. Shay Moss. That's not the person who shot Gabby Gifford. The person, Steve Scalise, Rand Paul, beaten up by his neighbor. Why? Because these people keep running off at the mouth. That's why. And I'm talking about both sides of the aisle. They keep vilifying each other. And pretty soon, just like I said, the acid thrown back and forth spills on the people of the United States, and drops of that acid eat into people's minds until eventually they start doing really ridiculous and dumb things. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said over the weekend the most haunting aspect of the recent home invasion and attack on House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband is its similarities to the Capitol riot on January 6th. During an appearance on MSNBC's The Sunday Show, Jean-Pierre told anchor Jonathan Capehart that the horrific attack Friday morning on the couple's San Francisco home is further evidence that Republicans must do more to condemn political violence. It is horrific and just very sad what we're seeing, and it goes to what we're seeing currently. We have to condemn political violence. It's something that should not be controversial. It is something that should not be partisan. It is something that all of us need to say that, and all of us need to say that, and it should be done with one voice. But sadly, it's become political, and we need to end this, unquote. Okay, Ms. Karine Jean-Pierre, that's perfectly fine. You say that it should be condemned by both sides of the aisle, but you didn't talk about Rand Paul. I talked about Gabby Giffords. You didn't talk about Steve Scalise. You didn't talk about all these other people. You didn't even talk about how horrific it was that somebody tried to assassinate a Supreme Court justice. Now, the other points, perfectly valid. But you cannot say that we should speak with one voice to end political violence when you're clearly blaming it on the other side of the political spectrum. And that's part of this. That's part of this. There's also something else, something not talked about. And that is how infuriating, quite literally infuriating, the American media is when it comes to reporting on these ridiculous political acid food fights. They just never seem to go anywhere. It's just outrageous. They just keep throwing bombs at each other. Well, the fragments are hitting the people of the United States, and we're starting to get annoyed. The short version of that is this. You can have all the food fights you want to in Washington, D.C., But you better keep those behind closed doors because an awful lot of Americans find them tedious and annoying. And annoyance leads to anger. Let's talk a little bit about how this is very much like the January 6th attack. Nobody got hit in the head with a hammer. As far as I know, nothing in the Capitol got hit in anywhere with a hammer. But they were those dreaded zip ties. Yeah, that's right. A guy that brought some zip ties in and never used them for anything. But he had them. It's ridiculous. Nobody got hit in the head with a hammer, but I do know that a federal agent shot an Air Force veteran in the face. She was unarmed, but somehow it was deadly force. Oh, okay. Nobody's adequately explained that either. Nobody's adequately explained it. The Department of Justice, or the Department of so-called Justice, didn't even bother to clear the streets in front of the homes of Supreme Court justices. What does that say? I'll tell you what it says. It says that Samuel Alito was completely correct. The leak of the Dobbs decision, overturning the Roe v. Wade decision, made each one of those justices a target of assassination. And the DOJ did nothing about it. Nothing. They had laws on the books. Nothing. She was not shot in the shoulder while trying to break in. She was shot in the face. They said it was the neck, but no, that's where the blood went. She was shot in the face. Why are you thinking that I don't know what I'm talking about, Alan? I know exactly what I'm talking about. Stop it. Stop it. And so what we have here is we have this trolling going on the chat room right now, taking shots at me. Let's see. They talked about Supreme Court justice. They enacted laws. They didn't enforce any of them. Let's see. They were not in office for Steve or the Rand Paul attack. Yeah, Nancy Pelosi's been the Speaker of the House for a very, very long time. She's been in the House of Representatives all of her life. What are you talking about? The former president's words incited 900 arrests. Okay. How many of those were for aggravated assault, elder abuse, breaking and entering, any of those things? How many of those 900 arrests were for attempted murder of a Supreme Court justice? You see, there's a time when a rhetorical response to reality becomes laughable, like that one, Langston. And then Alan says, no, she was shot in the shoulder. No, she was dead before she hit the floor. I'm talking about Ashley Babbitt. And the point of the matter was not the execution of Ashley Babbitt. The execution, the actual point of it all was how Karine Jean-Pierre said it reminded me a lot of the January 6th attack. Nobody got hit in the head with a hammer. Nobody. The only thing that happened was that there was some roughhousing. But the only thing that was truly terrible and deadly was Ashley Babbitt getting shot in the face. How many arrests are acceptable? 300, 400, 500. None of them are acceptable. What are you talking about? It's not what the arrests were. The arrests were for essentially breaking and entering in the U.S. Capitol, which is not actually possible. Okay, it was interfering with Congress. That's a law. Those are not acceptable. I'm not talking about arrests being acceptable. I'm talking about why those people were arrested in the first place. And you cannot escape the fact that the people of the United States had seen an entire year of the nation being burned down and looted, aggravated assaults happening left, right, and center, all because politicians did nothing. Federal buildings actually being burned. Did anybody burn any federal building when they went in the Capitol? Did anything get burned in the Capitol building?
I recall one piece of furniture getting broken. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And so what are we talking about here? Well, we're talking about the political explanation of something that leads away from where it needs to go. All of these things are horrific. Every single one of them are horrific. The attack on Paul Pelosi is not worse than, say, for example, the attack on Rand Paul. The shooting of Steve Scalise, on and on and on, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The problem with all of this is that both sides of these people now throwing this up, they are responsible for this. They have incited these riots. They have. And look at what we're talking about. We're talking about this evil Republican guy attacking this poor, sweet, fantastic Democrat guy. We're talking about that evil radical Democrat going over there and shooting that poor, sweet Steve Scalise from Louisiana. The problem is the people throwing these bombs back and forth are responsible for people actually attacking them. They've got to stop. And Karine Jean-Pierre is completely correct on that, even if her explanation was one-sided. Our politicians have turned our government into a playing field. They've turned it into an elaborate set of hammers to beat each other with. And I don't frankly care if they want to beat each other. When those hammer blows start impacting human beings, Americans, I start having a real problem with all that. This demagoguery, this melodrama, this crap, it's got to stop. Look, it's very, very simple. If you attack the Constitution and the Bill of Rights of the United States, you're going to scare people snotless. Stop doing it. Stop doing it. Stop doing the things that scare people to death. And they'll stop acting like frightened people. Stop allowing people to run in the streets because, well, they're just looking for social justice. No, they're not. They're looking for a new washing machine. We got it on video. They kick people to death in the streets. All of that whipped up into a frothy frenzy. It was ridiculous. So if you don't believe me, let's go back to the summer of 2020. Let's go back to the summer of 2020. Were there riots going on when the television cameras were rolling? When they went out there to a breathless reporter saying, well, things are really tense here. The George Floyd murder is coursing across the country and people are out here about to demonstrate. Was anything going on? In a few of them, yes, there were. There was a burning building in one that was memorable as hell. For mostly, it's a peaceful protest, except for the singeing I'm getting on the hair of the back of my neck from this Wendy's that's burning down. These are the things that people remember, and these are the things that people are dealing with, and these are the things that drive people up the wall. Okay, drive them crazy, and before you know it, when you drive people crazy, what do? They do crazy things. Literally. Mayors telling their police to stand down. And what did that do? It showed all of America how to protest. Until a different group of people actually started to protest. Well, my God, that was an insurrection. Oh, yeah? What were the riots of 2020? See, there he goes pivoting again. Whataboutism? No. I'm pointing out hypocrisy. That's not a pivot. That's hypocrisy. And moreover, I'm talking about the important things that we're dealing with here, which is the education of the American public. They see these things on television, they hear these people talking, and they think they're real. And
And so they act on them. The only way to stop it, to tell these people to stop inciting riots. That's what I would do. I would go to Capitol Hill right now. I would go to Capitol Hill right now. I'd tell all these people, knock it off. Knock it off. Stop lying about each other for political effect. Stop it. Get back to the business of the people. Stop playing your politics. And the best way but the thing about it is the best way to stop those people from doing that is not to go up there and talk about it. The best way to stop them is to send somebody else, deselect them. Let's do that. It's happening next week. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Please join me. I'll look forward to it. Be nice. You can join us on the chat room. It's rocking. You go to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. By the way, if you're watching on Rumble, thank you. I really appreciate it. Rumble is cool. We still haven't figured out how to do the live thing yet. I'm still working through that. But sooner or later, we'll be live on Rumble, okay? All right? So there you go. While we're talking about various swindles of various things, let me assure you that the idea of swindleism is still out there alive and well.
there's a group of people, a Delray, Florida beach developer. They are selling waterfront. This developer is selling waterfront property in Florida for $43 million. It is not a mega mansion. It is under the brackish patina of the Intracoastal Waterway in Boca Raton, with a base of muck and sand and threadbare seagrass. In other words, it is quite literally swampland. He is selling swampland for $43 million. That's funny. After 6 years of wrangling to clear the title and other legal baggage from the 4 acres of submerged land, the first victim of this stupidity, and I assure you it was stupidity, William Swaim, said it's ready for the market. Yeah, it's hot for waterfront parcels. Swaim specializes in flooded lands that other people overlook, said the plot can be filled with buildable dirt, have a seawall constructed, and is zoned for single-family homes. He'll do the dirt and seawall, but it will cost an extra $3.5 million. Yeah, submerged parcels are a headache, said Swaim. Really? It takes years to clean them up. Most people don't want to take years to clean them up. Yeah, most people don't. Why? Because it's swampland. Yeah. And the problem with it is that you just can't fix it. You just can't put in sand. You just can't put in buildable dirt. You can't put up seawalls because, my lord, he's trying to turn that swamp, that beautiful habitat, those wetlands, into something that people can use. What about the animals? What about the slime-sucking ankle biter? How will it live? Don't get me wrong. You can buy whatever you want to, even if it doesn't exist. It's up to you. That's why I keep wanting to say this. What I'm trying to say is this. What I'm trying to say is that sooner or later, if this stuff continues to go on, I'm going to start selling unobtainium, the most valuable substance in the universe. So valuable, it doesn't exist. But if you send me $500 now, I will give you 1 gram of unobtainium. In fact, you'll be able to trade grams of unobtainium in the unobtainium market. You'll be able to trade it for money. I have a gram of unobtainium. It's worth $500. Who's going to give me $650? Huh? Why not? Just like swampland, just like Bitcoin. What are you guys buying? I've got a Bitcoin, man. It's worth 20 grand. Have you ever seen it? No. That's right. Because they don't actually exist. No, I saw a guy playing with one the other day. Uh-huh. You ever heard of what do they call those? They call them non-fungible tokens, NFTs, which is basically a collection of something on a web page somewhere. I have an NFT of this beautiful portrait of this thing. That's awesome. How much you pay for it? $4.3 million. What if the hard drive crashes? No, it's okay. I've got a duplicate. Well, that's a fake, wouldn't it be? All this stuff is like, what? You know what this means? This means we have far too much money and not enough really important things to do with it. Non-fungible token. Swampland in Florida, $43 million. Boca Raton. Oh, what are you? You know, when I buy real estate, do you know what I say? Do you know what my first question is? Is this property in the floodplain? All of Florida is in the floodplain. Okay. Are the doors watertight? And if the doors are watertight, to what depth are they watertight?
What was the highest the floodwater ever got? I want to make sure that the watertight walls are above that number. And do you know what? I used to live in Florida. I literally asked those questions. Well, the doors aren't watertight. You'll have to put sandbags up there. Okay, fine. Because all of Florida is in a floodplain. See, all you got to do is not be flamingly idiotic. Is that still possible for Americans? Ask yourself that question. We'll be back with the next hour of the Wells Report coming up in just a couple of moments. Thanks very much for being with us on Monday. We'll be back with more in just a sec. Well, okie dokie. All right, so I'm going to go now and do something else. I'll be right back to do something else. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. We report the news, honestly and truthfully. We analyze for bias and facts. We point out both. In short, we depropagandize the news. I make opinion. It's called commentary. It is just my opinion. It's not news. It's most assuredly not propaganda. But it is debatable, which is why we have debate. News, analysis, commentary, debate. This is the Wells Report. We do it 3 hours, Monday through Friday, from 2 until 5 p.m. Central Time. That's 3 to 6 on the East Coast. And don't forget, this weekend, we're changing our clocks. I realized for some reason that I actually do agree with daylight savings time. And not that anybody else does, but I do. And I guess when we get closer to the weekend, we'll talk about it because I'll keep reminding you. Because everybody screws it up every year, both times. It's a mess. Okay, let's see. We'll talk about that another time. We were talking about this guy selling swampland in Florida for $43 million near Boca Raton. It's unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Hang on a second. I have to look up something else. Hold on. I got that wrong. Here we go. Let's see. Bingo. All right, now back to business. There is there's something that happens every year, like clockwork. Okay? Yes. Right. 30% of Florida is considered a wetland unless you're trying to build something on it. Anyway, there's something that happens every year that is distressing to most Americans. And that is a sudden and vicious attack on Christianity. Why is that? Well, because Christianity represents a barrier to all religions, not just Christianity, but being as how there are more Christians in America than any other religious group, Christianity stands in the way of a totalitarian American government. You're sitting there going, what? What are you talking about? We'll get to it. So every year, like clockwork, during the second most holy season on the Christian calendar, there are all kinds of nasty and rotten, mean-spirited things said about Christians and various Christian religions. And most of them center around the Catholic faith because there are lots and lots and lots of Catholics. But Christianity is a problem for certain political forces in these United States. And so what ends up happening is that people do their absolute dead level best to denigrate religion and God. And once again, it's all because of politics. Let me explain what I'm talking about here. This from Fox News. Megan Fox and her beau Machine Gun Kelly were castigated online for their Halloween costumes by those who saw them as religiously offensive. The 36-year-old actress posted a series of photos as well as a video to her Instagram with a caption that read, "On Sundays, we take communion." The 32-year-old rapper appeared to be dressed as a priest who gave communion to a kneeling fox in the video. That is sacrilegious. The couple immediately faced backlash for mocking Christianity, with one user writing, "Unacceptable. No one should ever mock someone else's religion." Another person commented, "What happened to cultural appropriation? Why is it wrong to dress up on Halloween as an American Indian, but okay to mock Catholics? It's absolutely abhorrent and offensive. I'm so sick of the double standard." Another person sharing the frustration wrote,
Let this be mocking any other religion or worldview, and everybody would get so upset. I swear the obsession with mocking Jesus and Christians and Christianity is just so sickening and hateful. Not surprising, though. Even fans of the star were critical, writing to Fox, "Woman, I really do love you, but please leave religions out of the costumes." Over the weekend, Fox and Machine Gun Kelly, born Colson Baker, donned costumes as Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee, rather. That's fine. That's fine. There was a problem with Machine Gun Kelly's costume. When he dressed as Tommy Lee, the pants were far too loose in front. Anyway, a fan commented on Instagram, "You both completely nailed this look. And it's obsessive." It also led to negative responses from users who took issue with the abusive nature of Anderson and Lee's relationship. One person wrote, "No, these aren't costumes. This is weird considering the well-known abusive relationship between Pam and Tommy." Right. Fox and Kelly have been the center of controversy before. After announcing their engagement, fans were quick to question Fox's Instagram caption where she referenced drinking her partner's blood. Oh, yes. And Ozzy Osbourne ate a bat. I understand. Anyway, this is all part and parcel. There's a beautiful picture of Machine Gun Kelly and Megan Fox French kissing in front of some red carpet runway somewhere, and his tongue is black. Oh, that's attractive. It's really attractive. Anyway, that's just publicity and garbage and foolishness. That's okay. You know, people in the public eye like to stay there, and they do whatever they can to stay there, and that's what happened here. But this is the beginning of Christian whipping season. Then, of course, there's this. The View co-host Whoopi Goldberg, dressed up in a red cloak and white bonnet, as June Osborne from The Handmaid's Tale for Halloween. Goldberg's red cloak included the words, "My body, my morals, my life, my choice, not yours," on the back. She entered the View set with several others dressed in red cloaks and white bonnets as well. You're saying, okay, maybe I'm just out of it because, by the way, I am just out of it. What is The Handmaid's Tale? What are they talking about? Well, it's an American dystopian television series created by Bruce Miller based on the 1985 novel of the same name by Canadian author Margaret Atwood. The first 3 episodes, let's see, the plot features a dystopian following a second American Civil War wherein a theonomic totalitarian society subjects fertile women called handmaids to childbearing slavery. Right. Apparently, people don't know that this is a television show. It's not real. Anyway, there you go. The Handmaid's Tale. So obviously, it is the thing to wear for Halloween among the very culturally elite leftist radicals who are very, very fond of talking about their body, which is very interesting about this. On the back of her red cloak, it said, "My body, my morals, my life, my choice, not yours." Tell me about those morals again. I want to know more about your morals. Can I hear those? Not from a judgmental point of view. I'm just trying to rationalize it with everything you've said. Just a little bit. Of course, John David, could you withstand one of those conversations yourself? Mostly. And so, once again, Halloween, like Columbus Day, like so many other days, Flag Day, co-opted into some ridiculous, stupid mess thanks to politics. Halloween, I will define it for you. Halloween
is a wonderful opportunity to flirt with the crazy dark side of human life. To flirt, not to fall into and become irreparably changed, just to have fun with it. Just a little taste of naughtiness. That's what it is. And you go around and you steal candy from people. It's great. It's fantastic. Right? Yeah, it was lovely, wasn't it, Arthur? And you can dye your tongue black for Halloween. I think it's really, really funny. Actually, the costume that I want to wear the most when it comes to Halloween, and yes, it is political, but it's not religious, right? It is political, however, and that is to dress up all in beige. Beige head covering mask, beige shirt, beige slacks, beige socks, beige glove, beige shoes. That way I won't offend anyone. The completely non-offensive Halloween costume. What do you think? I think it's brilliant. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the United States stands in the way of the NWO. Okay, well, I got it. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about this. You're saying, I want to know more about this, how Christianity stands in the way of a totalitarian society in the United States. I'll get there in just a couple of seconds. Now, there's this. This sort of ties into Whoopi Goldberg's costume. As Halloween approaches, an influx of sexy costumes begin filling the hangars in stores. Started as the standard sexy angel, sexy pirate, sexy cheerleader. Now there's sexy Donald Trump, sexy anonymous op-eds, and even sexy pizza rats. One question. What's a pizza rat? I'm sorry, did I miss it? Sexy Halloween costumes are everywhere in Tone's USA Today. And then they ask this question, but are they a problem? Are sexy Halloween costumes a problem? Some women say sexy Halloween is empowering. Expert raise concerns the practice reinforces harmful notions that women must dress provocatively to be accepted. And I'm here to say this on behalf of every rational, reasonable male in the entire United States. Females dressing provocatively is absolutely unnecessary. And it should not be a thing. It is unnecessary and it's demeaning. You shouldn't have to do that to get noticed or to have any kind of interaction with somebody you'd like to meet. But it sure as hell helps. I'll just say that, okay? It should never be necessary, but it helps. By the way, all these women that are so smitten with the idea that, my God, it's ridiculous that women have to dress sexily in order to be noticed. As she puts on her $500 makeup. It's one thing if you walk around with no makeup on, but seriously, sorry. You can't have it both ways. Just the way that is. You're listening to the Wells Report, back with more on Halloween and just more on Halloween. Look at what I've hit on. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number 817-379-2172. Let's see. I'm wearing my socialism distancing shirt. I'm going to go as a domestic terrorist. Arthur Davenport. Too many people are too critical of others. Absolutely. Let's see. Someone will get offended just to spite you. True. Absolutely true. Let's see what else. What else do we have here? Hollywood reminds me of the scene in the Ten Commandments when Moses crashed the tablets. Yeah. What do you plan on going as Halloween? I'm not going out dressed in costume for Halloween. I'm just going to sit in my front yard with my fire pit going, and I'm going to hand out candy. That's what I'm going to do. And I have a blood test tomorrow for my yearly physical, so I can't drink. Annoys me. It's got to be that fasting one, the one you hate. Arg. Anyway, so I'm going to go out as the most frightening thing I know. Suburban grandfather throwing candy at kids. Okay, that sounded so creepy. God, it sounded terrible. Okay, anyway. So let's see what else is going on. Mike says the old costume standby is stitching a few socks and undies to a sweater and going as static cling. Yeah. There's some people who argue with you even if you just say hi. No, they don't. I'm kidding. So actually, my wife Susan wanted me to dress up in this costume that is this large U-shaped object that is red all the way around and then sort of gray with a yellow stripe in between, with baby chickens stuck all over it. She wanted me to be a chick magnet. Yeah. So you shouldn't drink the day before fasting blood work? Maybe that's why I'm having so much trouble with my doctor. Yeah. Exactly. A chick magnet. It was kind of funny. Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. My favorite costume ever? I was a bumblebee. But I'm beginning to think that my favorite costume would be a pecan pie. I mean, it's my southern roots. Golly, man. I'll be a pecan pie. I think I'm going to do that next year. If I do anything besides sit in my front yard and throw candy. Okay, I'm not one to be critical. Okay, but pointing out hypocrisy is kind of, well, what we do. Okay? Pointing out hypocrisy is what we do. And there's a little hypocrisy here. Okay? Let me show it to you. Yeah. Do you know who that is? Do you know, obviously it's the Joker. I get it. But do you know who's portraying the Joker? Yep. Music mogul P. Diddy, now known as Diddy because somebody mentioned that you can't have P. Diddy without P, pulled off a perfect version of the Joker from Dark Knight, complete with creepy laugh. It's not about the money. Diddy captioned photos of himself running around Hollywood. It's about sending the message. Everything burns. In the video shared on Instagram, Diddy ran into Tyler, the creator in the passenger side of the pickup truck. This is top tier, he said of the costume once he realized it was Diddy. So, not to try to create controversy where there shouldn't be, but I wouldn't be the first one to do it. Anyway. But P. Diddy is black, is he not? He's Black American. I'm sorry. Isn't that whiteface? I mean, in this enlightened age of political correct, isn't that whiteface? Should I be offended? I'm serious. Okay, I'm not serious. I think it looks great. The thing about it is that somewhere there has to be some kind of equality, especially among people that constantly throw equality in everyone's faces, right? This is the Wells Report.
This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. Chat room is available to you even as we speak. By all means, spew a bit, shall we? Let's see. Okay. Let's see here. Yeah. Pecan. I used to say pecan. You say pecan pie until I was doing a voicer for some advertising agency in New Orleans. My producer goes, pecan? You mean pecan? Oh. Yeah, pecan. Let's see what else. Let's see. Have you all seen the costume package generator? So is that cultural appropriation? Yes. You're talking about P. Diddy doing the Joker? Yeah. Replying to Yvonne Field, that's how JD becomes a perfect bumblebee. Lots of pie. No, I didn't say I was going to eat pecan pie for Halloween. I said I was going to be a pecan pie for Halloween. Just saying. Let's see. Welcome to the dark side where we say pecan correctly. No, wait. Is it pecan? Which is the dark side? Saying pecan? Well, you say that. Okay. Let me ask you this question. Since we're on the subject of pecans, how do you say this word? Okay. How do you say this word? Okay. I've typed it into the chat room. If you're not on the chat room, you're not going to see it. How do you say that word? If you're in the chat room, take a look at it. How do you say that word? Actually, the people in the chat room probably already know how to say that word. Darn it, now I want some pecan pie. I gave my wife Susan an earworm the other day. Right? I did. I was singing a song just out of nowhere. I went, when an eel bites your thigh and you bleed out and die, that's amore. Anyway, it was stuck in her head all day. Okay, so let's see. So on praline, Praline is the word. Praline. Some people say praline. Jessica says praline. Yvonne says long A in praline. Only Michael gets this correct. It is praline. Praline. That's how you pronounce it. And so there you go. Little bit of New Orleans worldview there for you. All right. So speaking of worldview, spend a little bit of time talking about China. China got some bad news the other day. The United States is preparing to deploy up to 6 nuclear-capable B-52 bombers in northern Australia. This according to a news report today. That prompted China to accuse the U.S. of undermining regional peace and stability. Well, China, when you're talking about how you're going to go to Taiwan, which you consider to be something that no one else considers it to be, basically a rogue province of your country. When you say you're going to go in there and you're just going to take over the place and so on and essentially own the Taiwan Strait and all, people are just going to say no. They're just going to say, no, that's not what's going to happen. No, it's not. When you do stuff like that, that undermines peace and stability in the region. Just leave them alone. Taiwan is no threat to China. None. Taiwan is not. Leave Taiwan alone, and we will go home, shaking our B-52s behind us. So the United States is going to deploy nuclear-capable B-52 bombers to northern Australia. We're preparing to build dedicated facilities for the long-range bombers in Royal Australia Air Force Base Tyndall in the Northern Territory, according to national broadcaster, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, ABC. Tyndall is the south of the coastal city of Darwin, where thousands of U.S. Marine Corps troops have spent about half of each year since 2012 under a deal struck between the U.S. and between then U.S. President Barack Obama and then Prime Minister Julia Gillard. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese did not directly respond when asked in a news conference today if the U.S. is preparing to deploy bombers in Australia. We engage with our friends in the U.S. from time to time. There are visits to Australia, including in Darwin, that has U.S. Marines on a rotating basis stationed there. U.S. Air Force Base told the Australian Broadcasting Company, the ability to deploy U.S. bombers to Australia sends a strong message to adversaries about our ability to project lethal air power. When asked about U.S. bombers being positioned in Australia, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian said defense and security cooperation between the countries should not target any third parties or harm the interest of third parties. The relevant U.S. behaviors have increased regional tensions, seriously undermined regional peace and stability, and may trigger an arms race in the region, said Zhao. China urges the parties concerned to abandon the outdated Cold War and zero-sum mentality and narrow-minded geopolitical thinking, and to do something conducive to reasonable peace or regional peace and stability and enhancing the mutual trust between the countries. No, Taiwan is free, and Taiwan is a country in and of itself. And if you want to reduce tensions in the area, stop threatening to take it over. Simple as that. Or there will be a fight. There will be. And oh, by the way, there should be. Don't get me wrong, I'm not spoiling for a fight. All I'm trying to tell you is that if China wants to pick a fight with us, they need to believe that it will be limited from its success and maybe too costly to even consider. What is that called? Deterrence. That's what Lijian Zhao was talking about when he said it's the Cold War mentality. Deterrence theory refers to the scholarship and practice of how threats or limited force by one party can convince another party to refrain from initiating other courses of action. The topic gained increased prominence as a military strategy during the Cold War with regard to the use of nuclear weapons and is related to but distinct from the concept of mutual assured destruction, which models the preventative nature of full-scale nuclear attack that would devastate both countries in a nuclear war. The central problem of deterrence revolves around how to credibly threaten military action or nuclear punishment on the adversary despite its cost to the person who is projecting that idea. Well, the United States won the Cold War with deterrence. We did. And we'll win this war with deterrence as well. Remember when I was talking about China earlier, we had no real leverage on China except for Minuteman III missiles fired into the country, which is, regardless of what anybody says, that is World War III. However, a B-52 bomber, which, by the way, is not really a bomber per se, it launches cruise missiles. I mean, it can still bomb targets, but the nuclear weapons they're talking about are not bombs. They're cruise missiles with nuclear warheads. Because B-52, like virtually every other aircraft in the world, can't really, except for the B-2 bomber, can't fly over somebody else's country. B-2s can do it and have done it and are doing it. And so that's one thing, but B-52s, the reason you want them in Northern Australia is specifically to threaten China with them. Yes, they have a capability. No, they are not stealthy. They're not intended to be. They're intended to be wide open and absolutely visible to the Chinese, thereby establishing deterrence. The Ronald Reagan is in what we would call the Western Pacific for that same purpose. But the Ronald Reagan is somewhat limited. Those B-52s, that means something completely different. That's a completely different kettle of fish. And so what we're trying to do here is we're trying to give China a reason to pause. And it's very, very good, and it's very, very important. It is so good, I'm surprised the Biden administration is allowing it. Probably because they really didn't get much of a vote on it. Okay. Deterrence is widely defined use of any threats that limit or of a limited force to dissuade an actor from taking an action. And that works beautifully. And it will work this time. And it's something that China needs to see. And China needs to feel. Because they are serious about hammering us as much as they possibly can. They're very serious about it. I still don't believe that the SARS-CoV-2 virus was an accident. It's possible, but I doubt it. And the more I find out about that entire mess, the less I'm sure, the less I believe that it was just a naturally occurring virus. And they keep doing this research that quite literally could exterminate everybody on the planet if they keep after it. These nutcases ought to be tried for crimes against humanity, for creating a virus that uses the Omicron spike protein. That's the one that actually invades your cells, with the original virus, which kills 80% of the mice that are exposed to it. Now, that doesn't translate to human beings, we hope. But that it's a far deadlier virus than the original or Omicron, that does point something to me. Somebody is doing biological weapons research. Somebody is. And the puzzle piece of the spike protein of one of these virus variants, combined with the original virus, put together, what is that? It's a roadmap. And it was done by Boston University. What are you guys doing? How does that have to do with China? Well, what if they're trying to tell us something? What if they're practicing their own form of deterrence? It's like this. Hey, we shut down your economy with a cold virus, essentially, that killed a lot of people, and we have maybe about this much care that we killed people. But the thing about it is, it stopped your economy. Now, we gave you the pieces of the puzzle. You figured it all out. If you persist, do you think somebody might put those pieces together and it might possibly infect your country? And then, of course, we can stand back and say, no, it's Boston University. They must have had a lab accident. See, these people, these Chinese, are playing for real. They're playing for real. And they are betting that the people of the United States, regardless of who's the president, the people of the United States will not tolerate, to the point of essentially becoming subjects of the Chinese Communist Party, we will not take any action against them. They are sorely mistaken. But they don't know that yet. They honestly believe they can get away with it. And that's their mindset. You see, when they were starting to build missile silos for their ICBMs, which, by the way, were given to them by the United States, yeah, the Delta booster, that technology, that's what they based their first generation of intercontinental nuclear missiles on, ballistic missiles. When they started building those silos, we should have destroyed them preemptively. We should have done that, but we didn't. We didn't do that. And that emboldened them. You wouldn't have to hit them with nuclear warheads. You just have to hit them. As a matter of fact, for all intents and purposes, really all you'd have to do is hit them with a paint bomb. Use these practice warheads. Practice warheads. They're painted blue. They fly thousands upon thousands upon thousands of miles. They get up in the air. They split into 10 different warheads. Actually, it's not 10. It's 3 different warheads. And each one lands on the protective cover of a Chinese missile silo and leaves a nice blue mark. How about that? But we didn't do that. Why? Is it because we want to actually fight a real world war with China? Is that really what we want to do? The trick to not having pestilence and horrifying terribleness across the globe is to keep Pandora's box closed. We haven't done that, have we? Why? This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. We will be back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. I was not here last Thursday or Friday. I was working for the Texas State Guard in my capacity as a cadre member for the Non-Commissioned Officer Academy. And we were at a location, an undisclosed location in Texas. And I had 4 days with unbelievably remarkable people. The class that I was able to teach with my fantastically capable and amazing human being, Staff Sergeant Davis. During that class, I got to meet the next generation of truly great Texas non-commissioned officers. By the way, before I go any further, I'm not a spokesman for the Texas Military Department or the Texas State Guard. I am not. I'm just speaking as a private citizen. But the next great generation of Texas State Guard non-commissioned officers started their journey with us over the weekend. And it reminded me, as I watched these amazing people latch on to all of the things that are required of a non-commissioned officer in the U.S. military. It occurred to me just how great this particular group of people actually are. And we lost one of those people a while back. I said something about it on this broadcast. But the official notification came out today, and I thought I would share it with you. Thought what I would do is induct you into the honorary Texas State Guard. Oh, thank you, Gary. Anyway, somebody said something nice. This came from our commanding general, Anthony Woods. He's a major general, 2 stars. It is with deep sadness that I inform you that Brigadier General Dan Flynn passed away Friday, October 28th, 2022. General Flynn served Texas in the 36th Infantry Division during Vietnam and as a brigadier general in the Texas State Guard. General Flynn joined the Texas State Guard in July of 2006, serving in various positions of leadership before retiring on 19 May 2016. He also served Texas for 18 years as a state representative from Van Zandt County. He was a faithful father, husband, and rancher. His accomplishments include passing legislation that strengthened border security and modernized the statutes under which the Texas military force operates. He is survived by his wife, Susan, his son, Josh, and his daughters, Tammy and Missy, 5 grandchildren, including a great-granddaughter, Charlotte, and a great-grandson, Logan. Please join me in offering our sincere condolences to the family of Brigadier General Flynn during this difficult time. Signed, Anthony Woods, Commanding General, Texas State Guard. Major General. Dan Flynn was a friend of mine. Because of the distance between non-commissioned officers and commissioned officers, it was a professional friendship. But he was a great guy, and he helped me immeasurably. He was also in the company of Colonel David Aronakis, who is still with us, thankfully, and hopefully for a very long time. He, David Flynn, General Flynn, mentored me and guided me and helped me a great deal navigating the ins and outs of the Texas State Guard, and from time to time would furnish top cover for me and whatever counseling that was necessary from his point of view. It's not often that you ever pick up a telephone and call a brigadier general. But in the times that I had to do so, the first thing from General Flynn was an admonishment for me not being in touch. He was a great guy. He knew what he was doing. He was playing with me. He'd also spent an awful lot of time in his capacity as a member of the Texas House of Representatives on this broadcast. And he talked a lot about how making Texas better, making Texas a better Texas, was something that he was absolutely obsessed with. His love of this Lone Star State was on his sleeve. And he kept it there for very serious and important reasons. Dan Flynn will be buried in a Texas state cemetery. God willing, I will too someday. I'll never be the Texan that Dan Flynn was.
But hopefully at some point, I will be Texan enough to be laid to rest in one of those august cemeteries of Texas. Dan Flynn, God bless you. God bless your soul. God bless your family. He was a good one. We're going to miss him. This has been the Wells Report. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, take good care. Well, thank you, Yvonne. That was sweet. Thank you. God bless all y'all. I'm going to get on. Now I have to write an after action report about last weekend. So, gotta go. Peace, love, joy. I'll see you.